Probably the single most important question that I would ever have to ask is, are people happy? Everybody in this class is living their own unique life. People live all over the country. There's somebody here from Brazil. This afternoon I had people from all over Europe, from the Middle East. I mean, everybody is living their own unique life. And, in the uniqueness of their life, they have to arrive at a place that whatever their environment is, whatever their jobs are, whatever their day is like, is their heart open? Are they full of love? Are they full of joy? Are they grateful for their life? Is their mind just rattling endlessly with insecurity and et cetera, et cetera? That really is the focal point of everything this meditation is basically about. That each person that attends has to be completely responsible for their inner life and honest with themselves. And changing the environment is not necessarily the cure. Opening deep enough in ourselves, asking deep enough, wanting to be with God deep enough, and doing whatever is necessary to sustain that openness and keep ourselves connected to a higher, energy in the universe. That is the essential ingredient. Because ultimately, what is it all about? Ultimately, I hate to say this, but I was trolling or whatever it's called, the internet, all these news things. And I saw a picture of Brad Pitt in a skirt. And the commentary underneath it was, what does it matter? We're all going to die anyway. I might as well just have some fun. And there was something, I don't know how good he looked in a skirt, but there was something a little profound about that. I might as well, flip out a little bit. One day we're all going to just drop dead anyway. So what's the point of living in a cocoon and hiding out and, and having all our restrictions and what we can't do and can do. And, it gets down to ultimately being a silly thing. If we can just open our hearts and be free enough to live our lives with a connection to God or higher energy, and to live our unique lives with that connection. Not to be, stupid about it and go out and commit crimes. Well, what does it matter? I'm going to go kill somebody. That's stupid. I'm talking about in a responsible, honest, dignified way of living a unique life without ever hurting other human beings. And I think we all have to ultimately come back to a single, it's like that book that Oscar Wilde wrote, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Eventually, we all have to look in the mirror. And no matter how much we deceive ourselves about the safety of our lives, one day the mirror is going to crack. It's going to crack. And if we're honest and connected to spirit, then the mirror just disappears. We don't need a mirror to remind us that we're 29 years old when we're really 80 years old, We just live with joy in our hearts and love and be grateful for whatever God has given us in our life, whatever it is. Because ultimately, Rudy always used to say, God is love. And then he would say, it's written on every church, every synagogue, every mosque. God is love. It's so prevalent in our world that it's almost trite. God is love. And yet it's the truth. The love of ourselves, the love of other people, the respect we have and the dignity we have of our inner lives and the compassion we have for other human beings. And it's like, Ramana Maharshi, he used to tell all his students and disciples, ask the question to yourself, who am I? I mean, it's a great question, because if you begin to analyze who you are, well, I'm a man. One day I won't be. I'm this, I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm this, I'm a woman. One day it all just vanishes. So who are we? What we really are is nothing. Children of God. And having the consciousness to recognize that internal nothingness, and more than just the consciousness, but to live that way, allows us to be nurtured by the energy of spirit, God, higher energy, whatever you want to call it. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? It's that I always repeat this, but I really like it, and that's that Macbeth, out, brief candle, life is but a passing shadow, a poor player that frets and struts his hour on the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I mean, it's so profound. And we live in such an incredible soap opera that is manufactured in our minds and emotions that we forget, life is but a passing shadow. So in that passing shadow, our responsibility is to open our hearts, to find love instead of, fear and insecurity, to be able to live that way, no matter what our environment is, no matter how we live, whether we're rich or poor, or whatever race we are, whatever religion we are, ultimately it gets back to life is but a passing shadow. And if we're going to fret and strut our hour on the stage, we might as well do it with an open heart, with wonderment, with joy, with love, and not be worried about our financial situation or this, who we are, what am I, what have I become in this life, and all this other nonsense that just drives people crazy, instead of just simply opening to the gifts that God has given us, whatever they are. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? There's this kind of wonderful movie I once saw called Across the Universe. I don't know how many have ever seen that movie, but it's really kind of interesting. It takes place in the 60s, and they use the Beatles music to tell the whole story. And there was one scene where this young guy, he's a Princeton student, goes to his family. And the family tells him they're having this turkey dinner and Thanksgiving. And the family says, it's not who you are, it's what you do in life. And the guy responds and says, what I do, it's not what I do. It's who I am inside myself. And, I mean, it's a scene that's pretty intense, but there's a lot of truth in it and profundity. It's who we are internally and how much at peace we are with ourselves and how much we can live with gratitude for the wonderment that God has put in our lives, no matter what it is. Just basically even the food on our tables, the breath we breathe, the garden we have, the this we have, whatever we have, the car we drive, the people that are in our lives. And not who we are. Because whatever we are, one day it becomes nothing. I mean, it's like that poem by Shelley, "Here lies Ozymandias, King of Kings." He's standing at the grave of Ozymandias. Once ruled half the world, and now he rules a 6-foot space in the ground. I mean, it's so profound. And yet, because we're all wondering about what we're going to do, we forget we are children of God. We are truly children of God. And we have to be grateful for every moment of time that God gives us, in this life, even the difficult and impossible things we've had to struggle through in our lives. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? I mean, this is not easy to accept, but it's certainly worth it, It certainly takes a big load off of one to just look at oneself and say, hey, I can be grateful for whatever's in my life, I have a little Buddha sitting on my desk, I sit there almost every day and work with it, and it just brings joy in my heart, Doing this blog that I'm doing brings kind of joy. I like to write, and I kind of gave it up, and now I'm doing it again. Instead of worrying about getting publishers and all that stuff, I can do it as a blog. Because there's always a way. A door closes, 6 open, always. Unless we get so stuck in front of that door that we're like, that's the only door, We spend the rest of our lives sitting in front of that door and it never opens, which is how people live. And it's scary, because there's so many doors that open, pathways to freedom, to enlightenment, to having a wonderful life. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? And this is non-discriminatory. It doesn't matter how young or old you are. It doesn't matter what your race is, your religion, your political beliefs, your sexual beliefs. I mean, none of it matters. What matters is there's 6 doors that can open. Why sit in front of the one that's not opening? Does anyone have a question? Sometimes feel like I'm Socrates, like a gadfly in the marketplace, bugging everyone with my so-called words of wisdom. Does anyone have a question that would
Stuart, this is not a question so much as I saw pictures of Queen Elizabeth today, and she died today, and I looked at her photograph, and she at 96 looked so happy. She was so joyous. She was really joyous.
She was the Queen of England.
Yeah, yeah. And it made me so happy because she was ready.
Claudia, make yourself happy. Forget about the Queen of England, you know? You are the Queen of Eugene, you know? Make yourself happy, you know? It's true. Don't worry about the Queen of, she lived her life, but I'm sure it wasn't an easy life running that country.
Right.
So I wouldn't worry about, look, now there's the King of England now. God bless him, I hope. He's up to the job. It's a big job. That's a big door that sometimes doesn't open and you're stuck behind it. You don't know what to do. I've seen, they did television things about her, and I saw some of them. Very interesting woman, Elizabeth, a very wonderful woman. But the reality is not Elizabeth, it's each and every one of us. In our own way, we are the king and queen of our lives. And we should never beat ourselves down because of any way that we're living. Because no matter what goes on in one's life, it can always change. That's what makes us human. We have choice. Things can change.
This is Melissa, and I don't have a question, but just an appreciation for the talk you're giving tonight. Sitting home, thank you.
You're welcome, Melissa. I'm looking forward to seeing you here. It's going to be really nice when you come. Does anyone else have a question, a statement? They want to discuss you? Okay, well, again, God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to go through this shadow, whatever period of life I'm going through, and sharing it with you all. And, and trying to allow these classes to teach me something important about what I have to learn for my own life. And I'm grateful for that. I'm truly, profoundly grateful for that. Before I met Rudy, I was this miserable human being running around the world looking for a teacher, somebody to teach me how to get past myself. I met Rudy, and then it took 20 years from the day I met him to begin to get past myself. And in that years that I was with him, he did enough. I mean, look, I had the important position of teaching in Rudy's ashram when Rudy left. And he gave me his apartment to live in and everything, And one day he came up to me and he said, "You're no longer a teacher in my ashram." And it really like shook me up. Because it was the single most important thing in my life that he took away from me. And I went to the meditation room and I sat down in front of a picture of Nityananda. He came out of my heart and he said, "What has Rudy done?" He said, he has pruned the tree. He has cut you back, so that you, for the first time in your life, can grow as a healthy person, a healthy human being. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And I went back to Rudy and I looked at him with a big smile on my face and I gave him a big hug and I said, thank you. And his response was, I didn't think you would get it this quickly. I came back 15 minutes later and thanked him for taking everything away from me in my life. I didn't think you would get it this quickly. I'm not trying to take anything away. I'm trying to, no, he was giving me my life by taking everything away. You understand? It's extraordinary, but you have to be able to understand the world that way. Not to be resentful and angry and you know. I'll never forget. I never thought you'd get it this quickly. We both started to laugh. Okay, if there are no more questions, God bless you all. Thank you. And there'll be a class on Sunday. I'm looking forward to it and I hope to see you all then. Bless you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Stuart.
Thank you for being happy, Stuart.
Thank myself also, Chris.